Welcome back to Quick Hits. I am your host, Anna Witte, and as we continue our series with students from the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, today I am joined by a junior on the women's volleyball team. Her name is Ashleigh Holweger. So, Ashleigh, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I love all your creativity stuff in the background. I don't even know. Are those pictures and things you've drawn?
Some of them are paintings that I've done. Others of them are just like musical artists that I love. I have like my record player underneath there. So it's like a little music board.
Very cool. That's awesome. Well, those are all the things I really wanted to ask you about. For SAC, you're in charge of the social media page. You've been doing a lot of photography for us, and then I've seen you put your hand in graphic design. So where did your passion for creativity stem from?
It really started at a young age. Like ever since I can remember, I had a camera, like walking around at like parks and arboretums and stuff like that. Like I find pictures and I just always have a camera in my hand. But coming to school, I really had no idea. I've always wanted to be a volleyball coach. And so when I was looking at like degrees, I was like, I need to find one that I'm gonna like. And so I saw graphic design and had no idea that I would fall in love with it as much as I have since I've been here. So really it's just like every year I'm learning so much and just want to like keep diving into like new things. But I think a lot of it comes from my family. My dad's super creative. He's an author, big on music. So I think that's kind of like where it stems from, is just kind of how I grew up.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. What does he write?
He wrote a book about his high school basketball coach, and then he writes like all kind of poetry, and he's in the middle of working on a book about like his last, if you were to be able to play like 18 holes of golf, who we would play him with, and so each hole is like a different person. So it's really cool.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like you had a lot of good influence when you were younger.
Yeah, definitely.
So you said you're majoring in graphic design. What are your plans for that once you're done at CSU?
I don't know. I didn't even know that I would fall in love with like the SID department area so much. But once I was doing that, I kind of want to be around the sports world. And so I think that would be a really cool option. Also, I am really big on music. So if, kind of like a design industry for music, that would be a cool place to go. But I don't know. I don't have any like set in stone plans or ideas. I'm just kind of feeling it out, figuring it out as I go.
Okay, very cool. Tell us a little bit about your internship with SIDs. What did you do? And then how did that come about?
Yeah, so I had been in touch with the SIDs just because, you know, they're always around practices and stuff. And a couple of them were just like, hey, if you need an internship, like you can come hang out with us and help us around. And I was like, that would actually be perfect because it's right on campus. It's super convenient. And it was something I was interested in. So last spring when I did it, they just kind of like, Reagan was super awesome as an influence because she just kind of gave me like the tools I needed to go and helped me here and there. But she was like, I'm going to teach you and you're going to learn, like you're going to sink or swim. And so you're going to like, go out here, you're either going to succeed or fail, but I'm just going to keep giving you opportunities. And so they would just kind of let me go to games, sit on the sidelines, like find all these areas where I could capture different perspectives and all of that. It was cut short because of Corona, but I felt like I learned just from being able to do it and them offering me that experience, and like them trusting me with taking those pictures and taking those videos and stuff like that was super awesome and helpful for me to learn.
That's awesome. And how would you describe graphic design? I feel like you see it and people see these graphics on Twitter, on Instagram, or even during like sporting events. But how do you make it? What software do you use? And yeah, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a creative process. Like it's seeing things that people just can't naturally see. It's definitely like a gift. But the process, I use all Adobe products. So with photography, I'm always using Lightroom, videography, Premiere, and then for like illustrations and stuff like that, it's Photoshop and Illustrator. But yeah, it's just portraying like the message or what you want to get across, and just finding like a way or an angle that you can do that nobody else can kind of like see. Like it is honestly something that's feels like it's kind of not even like learned. It's just kind of like through experience, like you see it and you have like the eye for it and stuff like that.
Very cool. And yeah, you're right. Like I feel like graphic design is just, it's so unique. And I feel like it takes a certain person to like catch a moment. So how would you describe like when you're trying to think up of a project, where do you have to be? Or like, what are you thinking? Or what music are you listening to?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it kind of depends on what project. So if it's more of a conceptual idea, my head's like all over the place, like in the clouds. I'm thinking about anything under the sky. um Music, I'm a big 70s girl, so having that play in the background always kind of inspires me. But if it's like a conceptual project, it's really anything, like just finding inspiration from like things that are really small and you could almost like ignore if you just didn't look for them. And then just thinking like kind of like a brain map. So like you think of one thing, what does that make you think of? And just jotting it down and keeping track of those thoughts. Usually come up with like a lot of conceptual ideas like that. With sports, it's a little different. It's more just kind of like reading the environment, I think, and looking around, seeing what I can capture, what emotions there, what like elements of people's reactions and what they're doing, like how you can kind of like show that. So it's definitely different in each environment, like how I'm inspired and how I work.
Cool. That's awesome. And let's talk about the stuff in the background. I even stalked you a little bit on Instagram just to like see some of your work, and you're super talented and you have such a unique eye, and you're in this beautiful town. Like, tell me about some of the personal projects that you're working on that you've done with your friends and how those came to be.
Yeah, so this summer I worked on a lot of photography and just doing like very out there photography. And so I'm lucky because I have all these beautiful athletic friends who just are down to do anything with me. So I kind of just had thought about ideas and styles and pictures that I wanted to take. And so I would like dress up my friends and we'd put on some crazy makeup and we'd like go downtown and get like on the top of a parking garage during sunset and do those kind of things. But yeah, honestly, it's kind of like I don't have one frame of graphic design that I really gravitate to. It's kind of like I want to be able to do everything and I don't want to be limited. So it kind of depends on what's inspiring me at the time. And this summer it was a lot of like music and weird design and kind of like just like kind of bohemian, I guess you could describe it as, but very like, I don't know, the portraits were weird. Like they were like all these poppy colors on the beach, like having them wear these crazy outfits. I even threw on some like Photoshop things like that. So really it's just kind of like, I'll go in with an idea and I'll think that I have that idea like set in stone what exactly I'm going to do. And then I get there and it turns out completely different because I'm like actually looking at it and experience and I'm like, no, my whole idea has changed. So it's very like on the go. I don't know if I'm answering your question very well, but yeah.
No, you're good. And I'm like, now I'm kind of curious about your summer, and we've been in quarantine for so long. When this all started, were you kind of like excited? Because I know a lot of creatives love to be in their own space when they have time to be creative. Like, what was that like for you?
It was honestly, being home was really nice. Like I had time to just do what I wanted to do. And, you know, I had assignments and classwork to do, but once that was out of the way, I don't think I've ever painted so much. I had been working on a painting for a year and I finally finished it over quarantine. And so it was like this big old 4 foot by 3 foot acrylic painting. And I started it this summer of my sophomore year and just like had no time. So I just kind of like swept it under the rug, put it under my bed, didn't really even look at it. And it was just like those kind of things, like things that I've been wanting to do and had written down in my notes, like, oh, I want to do this conceptual idea, this kind of thing. I want to be able to find a chance to do it. I got to do all of that over quarantine. So it was kind of exciting. Like, obviously the time that we're in is crazy and not anything good, but some good did come out of it because I was able to have that like personal time with my art and stuff like that.
Right. And while you're in quarantine, did you do any projects? I know you said you finished a painting, but did you start any different types of artsy projects that you've maybe never tried in the past?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Gosh, it feels like so long ago. Honestly, I think I just really did everything. Like I didn't used to work with Photoshop, and over quarantine I tried to like teach myself Photoshop and try to work in there. A lot of things that I do are like centered around music. And so I would do these like music posters. And so I started to learn how to use like blend modes and all these other effects on Photoshop that I never learned before. And painting, I have never really been into painting at all because it takes so much time and I like to do things fast. Like digital is very fast work. But then I got into painting and it was more of the fine arts kind of stuff. And I was like, this is really relaxing. So I did, there's a couple back there. There's like a Bob Marley. I think he's sitting right here.
Yeah.
And then Beach Boys one. I painted both of those over quarantine.
Out of all the things that you can do, paint and take photos and graphic design, like what's your favorite?
I think my favorite's definitely photography and the illustration. So like the digital kind of portraits that I've done. Both are fast, and so I feel like I can get them done at a very like quick pace. But I think photography is my favorite because I'll just sit there and edit and like love it. Like it's so fun to capture a moment and then to go in on the computer and seeing like, oh wow, I actually caught that. Like now I get to edit it. Now I get to change the lighting, stuff like that. So I think photography is probably my favorite, but second to that is definitely digital illustration.
Okay, to change the topic a little bit, because you are a volleyball player, I'm curious how you got involved in volleyball.
Yeah, that it's actually kind of a funny story. I cried my eyes out because my dad wanted me to play volleyball and I just wanted to try out for soccer. Like I was not a good soccer player. I would sit in the goal like picking wildflowers. I was terrible, but for some reason I really liked it. And my dad was like, "I seriously think you should try volleyball." And I was like, I don't know. Like they literally cheer so loud and they do all these funny, like they wear socks and bows in their hair. Like I don't know. I'm not that much of a girly girl. And then seventh grade, I don't think I could do anything besides bomb a serve 10 feet out of the court. And so in seventh grade, some people couldn't even get the ball over the net. And so they were like, well, you kind of got a cannon of an arm. I guess we'll take you on the team. But I had no idea what I was doing. And then I'd say freshman year, I changed positions and I became a setter. And that's when I like fell in love with it. I just wanted to like put in the work and be around. My dad was a high school basketball coach. And so I was always in the gym. And so I always wanted to be in there with them, like just hitting balls against the walls and stuff like that. But had no idea that I would fall in love with it the way that I have. I'm super passionate about it. So I think that just kind of came with being a gym rat and then just kind of like learning. Like I love the growth process of volleyball and it never feels like I'm done learning. Like every year that I've been at CSU, I've learned so much more about volleyball through playing and through watching and practices and stuff like that. So yeah.
And do you feel like for so many sports, I feel like there's so many parallels to creativity. The biggest one for me, just because my background is soccer is such a beautiful, fluid sport. And I can just see like when people talk about like the Brazilian soccer players, they like pass around to the beat of their music. And it's just, people make a lot of parallels in that sport to the arts. Does volleyball do that for you in any way?
Yeah, I've actually never thought about it that way. I've always been passionate about art and passionate about volleyball, but they've always been kind of separate in my head. So I don't know if I've ever linked that together, but that's like a really cool thought.
Yeah, no, I remember when I was younger, I had a coach, I think they were called like the Samba Boys or something. And like he was like, if you watch them and play their music, like you will hear the beat and the way they move and the way they move off of each other it's just like their music. And also a lot of Spanish soccer players, like they move their hips really well because they play like salsa music and dance a lot differently than like we do here. So yeah, I just was curious if maybe you thought of that in volleyball.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So my other question too is, how did you find Charleston Southern?
I honestly, my brother went to school at Furman. And so the idea of South Carolina was never in my head until I saw that he went to South Carolina. But I had never really thought that I would end up going south or going that far away from home. And so when he went, I started to look at schools during the recruiting process in South Carolina. And then I looked at the beaches and I've always been such a beach bum. And so I saw Charleston Southern, reached out to the coaches. They came to games, stuff like that. And it was like, I think I committed on the same day I was offered. So I came for a visit. They gave me the offer and I was like, I don't even want to visit anywhere else. I want to be here. I want to be on the beach. Charleston was beautiful. I fell in love like the first time I went downtown to the city. And just the people, like that's what's really cool is I grew up in a small town. And so it was already like everybody knew anybody you passed on the street, you knew them. Like they were a family friend or you played a sport with their parent or their kids, their parents, stuff like that. And so I loved like the small school environment, the family kind of feel that it had here. And so as soon as I came on campus, I was like, this is where I need to go.
Yeah, and this town is such an artsy town and there's so many talented people. Was that a draw at all?
Definitely. Yeah. I definitely saw myself like the beach was a really cool inspiration. Like I just knew that I wanted to be, I'm such an outdoorsy person. And so I was like, the weather here is perfect. There's so many places to go. Like it feels like you can never stop exploring Charleston because you get to know like one place and then you realize there's like 5 other towns that you haven't even experienced fully yet. So I think like the opportunity to just like be around and never get bored, like just constantly being adventurous was super, super exciting for me.
Besides the beach, because I feel like that's how you're going to answer this question. What's a few other places that you get really inspired, a lot of inspiration from?
Yeah, definitely downtown. I grew up in a small town, like I was saying, but Cincinnati and Dayton were nearby. I just never really like got to be in or around either city. So being able to be, I know Charleston isn't huge, but a bigger city where I can just go around and I love like seeing people like walk on the streets and like, I don't know, I definitely get a lot of inspiration from different types of people. And so I think being downtown and just like getting to witness all these different kinds of people like just walking in the same town, having all these different stories and different perspectives on life and all that stuff really inspires me.
I know jobs are a big piece on where you live, post grad, and all that stuff. But would this be a town that you would love to stay in?
Definitely. I would love to stay here.
What kind of like opportunities are there here for you?
There's a lot of design opportunities, just like a bunch of businesses. I know a lot of people that have graduated have just done like freelance work. And so they've just kind of like created their own business and their own kind of agency and worked in that way. But even sports around here, like if I did kind of go like the sports graphic design route, then that would be a really good option too, because we have like all these semi-pro teams around here and a lot of colleges. So there's definitely opportunities here for design too.
Yeah. And like you said, I love that piece, that aspect about creatives is they can create their own LLC and just, make money that way. And I feel like sometimes creatives don't really enjoy working in big corporate companies. I could be wrong, but
That's definitely true.
well, to bring this interview kind of full circle, how did you get involved in SAC?
So I wanted to be on SAC when I came here because I had been in my high school called it PAC, so it was Panther Athletic Council. So I knew that SAC was a thing going into college, and we already had a couple of representatives. So when they graduated, I was like, I would love to fill that role. And then when I saw that the social media opportunity was open, I was like, that's definitely something that I would love to do, be able to do for CSU and for SAC and stuff. And it's just like a great way to use our voices and be a community of student athletes that are like trying to make change and thinking together. I just love that aspect of it, like the community.
Yeah, and there's so many things that I've heard your SAC in particular is working towards and trying to accomplish this year and for many years. But how do you use the social media page to accomplish and move forward in those goals?
Yeah, I think the social media is just one, it's an outlet to show people kind of like what we are doing. And so other people are able to see like us as leaders, people that are leading in the athletic department, what we're doing so that they know like we're fighting for change, we're fighting for our voices to be heard, that kind of thing. But also it's honestly just a really good like way to build a community. And so a lot of times like people have to send in videos that I'm able to use for the social media account, and that just gets conversations going and community built like in SAC. So I think it does a lot of things for SAC and for the rest of the athletic department, just being like a way to show our leadership and what we're doing and what our goals are and stuff like that.
And I feel like social media is such a great place to be, but it also can be really challenging in so many different ways. And one way in particular that I've learned just like being in this industry is a lot of even the big companies don't even know, how to use it or how it works, or like, they're just throwing stuff on Instagram, seeing if it sticks and seeing if people engage. Do you run into I know you run into those problems. Everyone does on social media. And how do you kind of work through that?
Yeah, I think so. We just started like a brand new SAC Instagram. So that was really nice because it was kind of like a clean slate and a fresh branding opportunity. And so when I post, like I look at the page, I see what needs to be on there. I think about times when people are active. I think we're still like really building our engagement and our following base and stuff like that, just from student athletes and people at CSU. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of challenges, but I think it was really cool getting to start our own SAC page this year because it really was like a clean slate, and we just got to kind of like brand ourselves and work towards there. And it's nice that I kind of have like that role because I was able to start blank and kind of like fill it up as we go.
Do you all as a whole kind of help you like put stuff on? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I could not do it without like Tiffany and Feg and Anna Webster. Like everybody helps so much. And then everybody in SAC is like so on top of sending in their videos and sending in all the stuff that I need to make the graphics. So I could never do it alone.
So you have another year and a half left at Charleston Southern. What are you hoping to accomplish while you're in this committee? And what are some of the things that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, when it comes to volleyball, a conference championship for sure. That's the end goal. NCAA tournament, that would be amazing. So that's definitely end goal for volleyball. When it comes to everything else, I think just building those lasting relationships and making a difference, making an impact at CSU with whatever platform, whether it's SAC, whether it's just being on the volleyball team, just taking advantage of those platforms and making an impact in the CSU community, stuff like that. And then those relationships, like I love my team. I love the people I've met at CSU. So just keep building those relationships so they last forever.
Awesome, Ashleigh. Well, keep up all the great work. I love everything that you share and that you post and that you're doing for Charleston Southern. It was so great to hear more about you. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.